And hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of Butt Fumble Sports NFL Talk. It's great to have you on the show. Have a lot of people joining us tonight. Excited to get to a lot of crazy NFL news coming out of Green Bay, New York, Las Vegas, and elsewhere. We have a number of people here on the show from around the country. Look forward to having a lot of different opinions in. Let's jump to those who are joining us tonight. We start with Michael Dobbin. You can check him out at Mike Dobbs94 on Twitter. Mike, how you doing this evening?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. What are your early thoughts on the free agency frenzy and the spending that we've seen so far?
I will be honest, I'm a little bit underwhelmed by what's going on so far. A lot of the big names are still available via trade that I expected to find a new home, but so far a little underwhelming. There are some good re-signings that I'd love to talk about later on.
Look forward to breaking it down with you and everybody else. We skip over to Adam. You can catch him at Spotter AJ on Twitter. He does a great job for us. Adam, how you doing this evening?
Real good, real good. I'm not as underwhelmed as Michael is, but boy, you step away from the computer, your phone, or your TV, and it's like you're 5, 6 people behind. As soon as you step away. So it's been coming pretty fast and furious here this afternoon.
It's amazing to see how much the NFL drops in terms of a tab early on, and yet this wasn't a major free agency class. There are certainly a couple of names that are noteworthy, but for what it is, the NFL gets out its checkbook and doesn't wait to spend its money. We also shift over to Lope. That's at JLopeDog on Twitter. Lope, how are you doing? What are your initial thoughts on the free agency tampering window and how it's gone so far?
I think it's been good. I think it proves that NFL GMs are going to be more aggressive and go for it, and teams that think they're close are not afraid to pull the trigger and move draft picks or money or whatever it's going to take to give their team the best chance. I feel like a lot of teams feel it's pretty open and they have a chance as long as they get in.
Going around one more time before we get into some of the news that's a bit more relevant to the last 48 hours, give me, guys, one team that you have as the early winner of the free agency period, whether it's through trades when it comes to draft picks, acquiring players, how they positioned financial capital. We'll start with you, Michael. Who's kind of an early winner for you so far?
To me, I like to go with the Miami Dolphins. I like the addition of David Long, a very reasonable contract, and obviously the big headliner in Jalen Ramsey. I thought that was a great trade, just giving up a third round and a third string tight end.
I love that Vic Fangio now has Bradley Chubb and Jalen Ramsey as new pieces to add into what was already, I thought, a pretty good defense. I'm a big Holland fan on the back end, so excited, much like you, to see what the Dolphins become. Adam, who's your kind of early winner of the free agency period?
I'm actually on the Dolphins as well too. I think that bringing in Ramsey was big. I think re-signing Jeff Wilson was good for them. I think he can be another key player. But honestly, I think signing Mike White was a good signing for them. I think that gives them some real stability at the backup quarterback position. With Tua's uncertainty, and Mike White proven he can play with a substandard offense. So he put him in the Miami offense. It actually could be a pretty serviceable backup. But I'm with Michael on this one too. I like the Dolphins so far.
Do you prefer Mike White or Taylor Heineke, who signed with the Atlanta Falcons to be their typical white guy backup?
I like Mike White. I know Heineke came in and won games, but Heineke at times was like kind of pedestrian when they get the ball in 3rd and 8. And you're like, hey, biting your nails. Can they get this? Where I think Mike White, as a locker room guy, people want to play for him. He was a gamer. And I just think he was a little bit more versatile than Heineke can be.
Lope, who's your early winner?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Mind if I jump in real quick with that?
Go for it.
Yeah, with the Heineke Mike White take. Being unfortunately a diehard Washington Commanders fan, Taylor Heineke was the heart and soul of the locker room. People love playing for him. I think he is a great signing as a backup. It was his time to move on from Washington, but he was just always dealt with a really bad hand, especially with Scott Turner's offense. But I think Taylor Heineke is a great pickup for any team. That's just my take. Sorry.
No. And I want people to jump in and The reason I threw that out as the comparison in large part was because I feel like both of those guys didn't get the opportunities they deserved. Like they looked good when they were on the field, and yet somehow they're out of a job come the off season. They both signed to be backups that could easily become starters through the regular season, given Ritter and Tua are probably prone to both injury and to streaky play at times. So you could see them both on the field. And Taylor Heineke, he's kind of the heart and soul guy. Mike White is kind of the more, more developed, more mechanically sound. Like he's the pocket passer. He's tall. He's going to throw it out of a better arm slot. So it's interesting that you go with Taylor Heineke over Mike White, Michael.
Yeah, I'm saying it not just because I was a Washington fan and I actually got to witness every single snap of his. It's just the team camaraderie that just was around Taylor Heineke. They played hard for him every single snap, even though, as I said, he was not dealt with a great hand. And yes, he is not the prototypical quarterback with size, athleticism, arm strength, accuracy, but he does give it 100% every single down. And he is the reason why Washington won many games. I would say that every game that he started, there was a chance for us to win. I think it was mostly the coaching staff that did screw with him a little bit, but at the same time, there were the limitations. But that's why he's an NFL backup. He's not an NFL starter.
Taylor Heineke, to me, is the quarterback from Friday Night Lights, the movie. Like, if that kid who actually was like a 30-year-old man had gone on to play NFL football, he would be Taylor Heineke. And that, to your point, like his mechanics aren't sound, but like he's willing to like bleed on the field to score a touchdown. He's just probably going to have to run it in because he's not that good a quarterback. But I like Taylor Heineke a lot, and I understand what you're saying. So I'm not hating on him at all. That said, we'll shift over to Lope. Lope, you're a Miami Dolphins fan, so we already know you love your offseason, but give us another team that you would kind of declare an early winner of the free agency period.
I really liked what the Bears did. I thought they maximized the first pick, getting DJ Moore too, and now they put it themselves in a position where maybe Bijan Robinson's available, and they've completely reshifted that offense, and now they get to see what Fields is like with weapons. And then I also liked what the Raiders did, and Jimmy G, I think that's a better fit. He knows McDaniels and his system, and the pieces that they're adding and building over there. I think Derek Carr just overstayed his welcome, and it'd be nice to see a breath of life because they do got some parts, and I think those are the two winners.
Love it from Lope, and I want to give a big shout out to Yoni who's listening, and to all the Bears fans out there. I have to agree with Lope. I thought you guys were the big winner so far of the NFL offseason. You used that number one pick overall brilliantly. You moved out of that slot. You've made the declaration that Justin Fields is your quarterback, which I think is really important. I don't think that they should be cautious about him. I think they should double down on him. And now you have the draft picks to go build a really good team. Edmonds was a great pickup in free agency, too. Love that signing. I know they didn't get McGlinchey, who went to the Broncos, and I think that's a big miss for them because they need to build that offensive line. But I love what they did in Edmonds. I think he's 24. So you're going to get prime years out of him. Good contract. So that goes around. We open it up, obviously, with everyone's winner so far. But let's get into the big news of the week. And let's start with Aaron Rodgers. Want to get everyone's take. We'll start here with Adam, since I know you're the big Packers reporter on the team. But we haven't gotten word yet whether Aaron Rodgers will be a Jet. It's expected to come any day. He's on the Pat McAfee show tomorrow, so many are predicting that he will ultimately make his declaration then. But it came out earlier today that he has a reported shopping list for the Jets to go complete. That included Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Mercedes Lewis, and Odell Beckham Jr. Adam, is this just diva 101? Is this the ultimate Aaron Rodgers pimp move of the Jets? Or do you actually think the Jets are doing the right thing and that Aaron Rodgers is justified in these requests?
Do I have to talk about this? Do I have to? I've talked about this for it seems like the last 10 years with this guy. No, this is prototypical Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm not going to put it all on him. I'm sure behind the scenes, if there's a deal being worked out, maybe the sides between the Jets and the Packers haven't finalized the deal yet. But this is the typical Aaron Rodgers we've seen the last couple of years, right? It's going to be about him. He's going to wait to the last minute. He's going to hold everyone hostage. He even said in the offseason, look, I understand I can't hold, the Packers hostage this year. We'll make a decision going forward, blah, blah, blah. But he's doing the exact opposite. As far as his wish list to the Jets, he did the same thing with Green Bay. When he signed this 2-year deal, he gave them all the wants and needs that they wanted, and Cobb and some of his other guys that he wanted. So to me, this is nothing new. I've been seeing this for years now. So, the Jets fans, I think the Jets, there was this big game of chicken. I read an article earlier today about who's, between the Packers want to move on and the Jets, they know they have to move on, but the Packers know that now that Garoppolo signed and Carr signed, that kind of leaves them, kind of wandering out to the wilderness without a quarterback for next season. So, is that happening or not? But like I said, I this is no surprise to me that it's Rodgers and he's waiting to the last minute. Will he do anything on McAfee tomorrow? I'd be surprised if he did. I know he likes to kind of talk on there and spew his nonsense, but I'd be surprised if he actually came out tomorrow on McAfee and said what the decision is. But as far as him handing a wish list, it's no surprise to me.
You think he likes dragging out the process more than he actually likes making the decision?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
It's really too bad that we're doing this over someone who's going to be 40 next year, because I also think it sets a dangerous precedent for future quarterbacks. We see Lamar Jackson trying to set a precedent when it comes to contract negotiations, not using an agent, trying to get guaranteed money. I fear Aaron Rodgers is taking the baton from Tom Brady in what he could demand and all of a sudden converting it into a playbook for future quarterbacks. And not everyone's going to be like Patrick Mahomes and just going to be cool to stay with one franchise forever. I think there are going to be a lot of quarterbacks in the future who are going to hold teams, to the fire. And it concerns me a little bit. Michael, I know you wouldn't have a problem with that. Being a Washington fan, you would do anything to have a quarterback right now. But shifting away from Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, he's in that situation looking for all of these demands. It doesn't seem like the Ravens are going to play ball. He, I believe, is on the clock tomorrow. He can officially start negotiating with teams. Should Washington try and make a move for Lamar Jackson, or is there any other team, or is he just destined to be stuck in Baltimore?
Honestly, I'm on the fence when it comes to Lamar. On Washington, yes, I'd love him. I've been wanting a quarterback for my entire existence. It's been like a revolving door, and it's been depressing every single season. But at the same time, I'm scared of signing him to a fully guaranteed contract, which is what he wants. And a lot of NFL teams are scared of that because of Deshaun Watson.
But if you've never had a franchise quarterback, wouldn't you give, the old, I'd give my left nut, I'd give my firstborn, I'd give whatever it took. Wouldn't you give that to have the Washington Commanders be the great franchise of the next 3 years?
It comes with caution in my mind. It really does depend on the ask of just the money, because if for some reason it just doesn't go well, you're in just dead cap, like limbo, you're just in hell trying to get rid of the contract that no one's going to want to take on in a few years anyways. It really does depend. I would love Lamar Jackson because I don't want to say we're one piece away from being a really good team, which we are. It's that quarterback spot because we've got a bunch of great talent on the offense. They're all young. And our defense, we just re-signing Darren Payne. I think that we are one quarterback away, but it does depend. I can also, like a lot of people are saying, is Dan Snyder going to do one last FU to the Washington franchise and give Lamar Jackson the most money that you will ever see and just like screw us over for the next few years?
I don't know. I don't know why that would be screwing over the Washington franchise. It would be. I think Dan Snyder not making the move is him screwing over the franchise. Wouldn't you like to have a brand new face of the franchise to go with that new stadium you're going to get in a few years and the new owner that probably comes with it?
It really, once again, it does depend on the money. That's the whole thing that I'm always just going back to, is the money. With the health of Lamar, I know this is his first full serious injury that's going to prevent him from being on the field. But at the same time, the money is what's always going to scare people. And it really does depend on what he's going to do on the dotted line that he's going to agree to. I can't say that I know what the front office is thinking because I don't. No one does. But at the
Well,
same
especially
time,
with Dan Snyder, he plays Russian
exactly,
roulette, just
like
like in his day-to-day life.
he's the bane to every Washington fan's existence. Like he's just so. At the same time, part of me just wants to wait for the new regime to come in, and at the same time, I would love Lamar Jackson, but I don't want to sound greedy, but at a reasonable price. Like that's the thing. It always comes back to the money to me.
And why I'm kind of pushing on it is the NFL to me is the one sport in which I don't think that statement applies in the same way. Baseball, NBA, hockey, I get these franchises can't afford to bankrupt themselves over a single player. You know, if you have an Albert Pujols kind of deal, if you're the Angels and it goes south, you are saddled by that. And there's nothing you can do. The NFL is a mega cash cow. These owners, they're not losing sleep over money. The salary cap in the NFL, they can move money. How much money have we heard like, oh, this player renegotiated so they're under the salary cap or they gave salary cap space back to the team? Is the salary cap a real thing? Like for those, Adam, Michael Lope, quick open up your mics, jump in. Quick poll. Is the salary cap, do you believe the salary cap is a real thing? Or do you think it's a kind of nonsense metric for the NFL? Because I think it's nonsense.
It shouldn't handicap teams, as you said. You can move money so many different ways. I mean, you've seen how many people the Rams put when they went on their Super Bowl run and how they moved it. So I mean, the teams that are going to be more aggressive are going to be rewarded for it. Yeah, they might fall out from time to time, like the Rams have, but by going for it, they're going to be more rewarded if they're more aggressive.
I think that it really does handicap a lot of teams that, as you say, it doesn't really need to, but that's just what the front office, for some reason, they want to nickel and dime a lot of these players as well. A lot of, as you said, reconstructed contracts that, like Tyreek Hill, they just created a lot of cap space by reconstructing his contract. It's just, I think, like basketball, it shouldn't really matter as much. Baseball, you can get screwed easily by just giving a player 350 for 10 years and then they stop performing after 2 years. But the NFL, I don't think it should matter as much.
And Adam, do you believe in the salary cap?
Yeah, I think there's just so many ways to manipulate it. And like Loeb said, the ones that are aggressive are the ones that can use it to their advantage. But there's so many ways to move money around and like Michael said, restructure people's contracts that, you know, it's there, but there's just so many ways around it. I do like, you know, for the NFL, you know, there's so much more guaranteed money now coming in. But, you know, the incentive-based contracts, I think, is kind of fallen by the wayside. And obviously, these guys want to get their money while they can because it is a violent sport and your career can be over in one play. But, you know, the incentive-based contracts of, you know, hey, here's your base salary, but then you can earn up to so much. I wish we saw more of that. But obviously, you know, that's gone by the wayside with players wanting to get their money and get it right now.
It's just interesting to me of all the sports that any team or fan base would say, oh, we can't afford a potential franchise quarterback, a player that can give us the title that we've been searching for decades. We're willing to avoid that because we're worried it's going to financially cost us in a sport that's generating billions, that owns a day of the week. I'm surprised that we treat it that way. And draft picks at this point, I feel like you can get out of bad deals, and I feel like you can acquire picks. I feel like the NFL is a year-to-year league now, more than it's ever been, and we don't live in dynasties other than players like a Patrick Mahomes, because a team can rebuild so quickly. Look at the Bengals, look at the Jaguars, look at the Lions. These teams have rebuilt over a year or two. You're seeing the Bears do it, and we're really talking about Dan Snyder, and it's unfortunate. I set us up to talk about two of the villains of the NFL, or you know, supposed villains, Aaron Rodgers and Dan Snyder, because these are guys who do like to hold us hostage with what they could do, what they should do, and what they don't do. And Dan Snyder, I feel like this is a move that should be made. That's why I brought it up with you, Michael, because I feel like Washington, of any team in the NFL, actually could benefit from this kind of move. He transfers over. There's a large fan base that would probably stay a Lamar Jackson fan and kind of shift over to a Washington fan. I think it's and Washington needs a face of the franchise. They don't have one. If you think Sam Howell's the guy, I have a bridge to nowhere to sell you.
Oh, no, Sam Howell's not the guy. But at the same time, part of me does worry that if Snyder does get Lamar Jackson, he's going to be like, look what I did for you guys. I want to stay now. unless he gets forced out by the other owners, which if that happened, I feel like it would have been done by now. I'm just going to get very worried. And that's something that I don't want whatsoever.
Last team that we're going to talk about before we do one of our weekly game shows is we're going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders, who have certainly opened up their checkbook, made a number of moves. We'll talk about Jimmy G in a little bit and whether that was a good move, but they made a couple of deals today, one to acquire a wide receiver and one to move on from a tight end. They signed Jacoby Myers, the New England Patriot, who gifted them a win last year with his terrible play to end that game. But Jacoby Myers goes there for a few years, not a lot of money. And they move on from Darren Waller. They trade Darren Waller to the New York Giants for a third-round pick. Lope, we'll start with you. One, do you like the move to acquire Jacoby Myers? And then secondly, moving on from Darren Waller, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think Waller was kind of like one of those things where he's getting older and salary cap issue, and he's been hurt, so they were looking to get rid of him. Talks where Packers were also interested. But Jacoby Myers, yeah, I like that. As a number one or a main guy, no. But next to Devontae Adams, where he can kind of move on his solo end, I think he'll be very effective. Josh McDaniels has got pieces now, and a quarterback that's familiar, not going to make mistakes, and not afraid to be more aggressive now. So I'm interested to see what the Raiders are, and I think what we all thought they were going to be last year, they might be moving towards this year.
I'm impressed by what Josh McDaniels is building in that he's acquiring his guys, and I do think that's a benefit when people come in with a familiar DNA, whether it's understanding the playbook, familiarity with one another. I don't think Jimmy G and Jacoby Myers ever had an overlap, but they're working off the same playbook. They're working off the same terminology, and that's Josh McDaniels' vocabulary. I think that's a benefit. Adam, are the moves that the Raiders are making able to push them at least into playoff contention? I know they were on the fringes at times, or are they still an entire defense away from being in contention?
I think they can be in contention, but their defense obviously is still a problem. But as far as the Myers signing, I don't really have too much of an issue with it. Like you mentioned, the money was not too crazy, and now you have someone that can be workable across from Devontae Adams, which is much needed. As far as Waller goes, I feel like we've been talking about Waller in trade talks and teams interested in him for like a year and a half. So I'm not really surprised if there was a break in the relationship there, or it was just time to move on. But like Lope said, he's getting a little bit older. Maybe the cap hit a little bit too much, and obviously he had some he's been injury prone last season. So moving on from Waller, not really surprised. It just seems like he's always been in that trade talk for the last year or so.
I like that third-round pick for the Raiders because I do think there are a couple of tight ends that will be available. I believe it's the 100th pick overall. I think it fits in nicely. There are a couple tight ends. This is a pretty good tight end class. Probably not as superstar heavy as next year's, which means in that third-round area, you're going to get some good players. So I actually think the Raiders are well positioned. I'm not hating on the move. Waller just seems to get hurt too frequently. The question I have is what happens to Hunter Renfrow? Michael, is Hunter Renfrow another player that's going to be kind of left behind now that Jacoby Myers is on the team?
Yeah, it's tough with Hunter Renfrow. I mean, he was dealing with a lot of concussions last season that didn't let him be on the field. That can be some lingering issues. At the same time, I do think that Myers is an upgrade from Renfrew. So I don't think that I can see much playing from Renfrew. They might want to move on from him. I really do like the Waller trade as well for both teams. It is high risk, high reward for the Giants. As you guys said, he's very injury prone, but if he's on the field, he's a difference maker. And that third round pick, I thought, was a great value.
Before we get to our game, one last thing. We're gonna grade the two trades. Who got the better of it? The Miami Dolphins acquire Jalen Ramsey for a third. The Dallas Cowboys acquire Stephon Gilmore for a conditional fifth. Who got the better trade? Adam, we'll start with you, and then we'll go around to Michael and Lope. Who got the better trade?
I like Miami getting the better trade with Ramsey, giving up a third rounder, and I think Michael mentioned that backup tight end and Long. I think they solidify a corner that with Jones being gone now, needed to take care of that. And obviously their defense, for the most part, let him down a little bit towards the end of the last year. And I might be in the minority on some of this though, but I've never been having any issue with trading draft choices for good football players or experienced football players. If you trade a third, fourth, fifth round pick and get someone really decent return that's proven, I always tend to err on that side than, getting a young kid. Yeah, if you get a young kid, you can keep him under a rookie contract, but you don't know what you're going to get. So giving up a third rounder for Ramsey and the backup tight end, I think Miami absolutely won this trade.
I agree, especially when it comes to defensive players. If it's a running back or a wide receiver, I feel a little differently. But when it comes to a defensive player, you know what you're getting. The likelihood of injury, I feel like, is a little less. So I totally agree with you. Michael, who do you feel like won those two trades?
Yeah, I think once again, as I said, the Dolphins were the big winners. I think the Dolphins won the trade. That value for Jalen Ramsey, I thought, was a great trade. Why not? I didn't know why many more teams were uh, fighting for that, but at the same time, I think having a player that's 3 to 4 years younger than Gilmore, I think Gilmore has his best years are behind him. I just really think that Ramsey fits perfect in that Dolphins secondary.
Lope?
Well, I like both of them, and I think Gilmore is going to do well with the Cowboys across from Diggs. But obviously, I'm going to go with the Dolphins. Jerry Jones' first choice and option, I thought, was Ramsey. I don't know how he got outbid on it. It almost seemed like with the value the Dolphins got, they were bidding with themselves. So I'll take the Dolphins. I think Ramsey's a little better, and I think he's going to play better in a more aggressive scheme that the Vic Fangio likes to run. But I still think the Cowboys, who needed secondary help, still got a valuable asset. I think PFF had Gilmore as a top 10 corner last year, so he was good and forgotten on a Colts team that was really bad.
Lope, I'm going to double down on what you just said, which is yes, the Dolphins got the better player. I actually think the Cowboys made the better trade because they were desperate for secondary help. Their secondary was depleted at the back half of last year. Other than Trayvon Diggs, they don't have anybody else. And they immediately add another press corner in that Dan Quinn defense, which allows him to hunt, have his linebackers and edge rushers attack that much more. I think it's a great move. I think because it's a fifth round conditional pick, you're still going to probably draft for someone in the secondary. This is a deep defensive back class. So for a number of reasons, I thought it was a great move where I thought Jalen Ramsey being added to the Dolphins was almost a preemptive strike to, with Aaron Rodgers, supposedly joining the Jets. But I think the Cowboys were desperate for a move. And given who else was left on the free agent market, I thought this was a really good trade. With all that said, we'll shift over now and play our game of the week, which is going to be a grade the signing for NFL free agency. We're going to go through the deals, and each guy's going to go around rapid fire style and give us a grade for the trade, or a grade for the signing, rather. We started a little bit a while ago, but it became official. It starts with Derek Carr, 4 years, $150 million, $100 million of that guaranteed. Adam, we start with you. Give it a grade.
I give it a B. I think it's a good spot for Carr to go to. I think the Saints needed someone a little bit more proven at quarterback here, other than Winston and Dalton this past season. So I think it's a B.
Michael?
I give it a C plus. I'm still not 100% sold on Carr, but he has good weapons around him for him to succeed.
And Lope?
I'll go B minus and cut the difference. I think it's good that he's going to a place that he wants to, and the Saints don't have anybody in their division, but ultimately I think he'll disappoint.
Right tackle Mike McGlinchey decides to go with the Denver Broncos over the Chicago Bears. He gets 5 years, $87.5 million, 50 of it guaranteed. Adam, how do you feel about this one? Give it a grade.
Yeah, I give it a C. I'm not crazy about $17.5 million a year for right tackle. I know offensive line obviously is pretty important, but that 17 to 20 million a year to me is a blindside left side tackle kind of payday. So I give it a C. But again, Denver needs to upgrade anywhere they can in that offense, as pedestrian as it was last year.
Michael, what's your grade?
I like Mike McGlinchey as a player. It's just with how much you're paying an offensive tackle, I'm going to give it a C plus again.
Wow, some tough grades on this one. Lope, how are you feeling about it? Can we get a more favorable grade for Mike McGlinchey or no?
No, too much money. I'm gonna go with a C as well. He was ultimately, I think, more in the lower tier in terms of money, and I don't know that he's that high caliber of a right tackle.
I'm going to grade this one on a curve. Given that the Denver Broncos don't have draft picks, they had to address their offensive line to get better. I thought Sean Payton made a good move here because I thought he was the best offensive lineman available. So you guys may hate on it. I actually thought it was a decent move. I know it's a lot of money, but I'd rather sink money into the trenches than anywhere else. We'll go to Javon Hargrave next, defensive tackle. He goes from Philadelphia across the country to San Francisco. Big move by John Lynch to add to that incredible defensive line. 4 years, $84 million, 40 of it guaranteed. Adam, give it a grade.
So I give this one a B minus. He's going to solidify the inside pass rush, which the Niners somewhat needed there. But you're adding him to a great defense, and you weaken the Eagles in the process. Where the minus comes in from is it's a lot of money. I know it's in line with some of the other top defensive tackles in the league, but I believe he's 30 or 31 years old now. So a 4-year contract to that could be a little bit much for a defensive tackle over 30.
Michael, what's your grade?
I'm giving it a B plus. I think that he has a perfect fit with the 49ers. He's coming off a career year. He was one of the best defensive tackles when he lined up under center, right, with the sacks at, I believe it was about 9. So I think that's just a perfect fluid fit with the 49ers defensive line.
Lope, where are you seeing this one?
I agree. I think it's a B plus. I think it's a really good move. Any way you can help single up Boson or some of these other pass rushers they have is good, and they know where they're at. They don't know what their offense is going to be. They don't want to get in shootouts. They want to keep the opposing team lower. So putting money in his strength is, I think, a good idea here.
Nice that a few of you can show some love to an NFL GM. Those were some tough grades early on. We now move to the Kansas City Chiefs, who address their offensive line. Jawan Taylor signs for 4 years, $80 million. The supposed rumor is he's going to shift over from right tackle to left tackle to protect Patrick Mahomes' blind side. Adam, how you feeling about it?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, again, paying that kind of money for offensive linemen is kind of hard to do, but he's a plug-and-play situation there. So you have the franchise of Patrick Mahomes. So I guess it's not, is it too much money bringing in players to protect your franchise quarterback?
What grade would you give it?
I'll give it a B.
Okay, pretty solid. So interesting that you feel strongly about that versus Mike McGlinchey. Is there a particular reason why?
Keeping Patrick Mahomes upright and not having him run around and keeping him for 17 games a season. You lose Mahomes, the rest of the season's gone.
And your feeling is if I lost Russell Wilson, I might take a step forward? Okay.
That's correct.
I got you. Michael, how do you feel about that Jawan Taylor move?
Yeah, no, I think any way you can bolster that line to protect Patrick Mahomes is a great pick. I like it. I think it's a B plus. It really does depend on the Orlando Brown situation as well. If you can re-sign Brown, I'm going to give it an A. I'm going to boost it up. But I think that Taylor is a great addition, and he registered one of the lowest pressure rates of last season.
Do you feel like Orlando Brown is still in play for the Chiefs, or do you think by letting him go to the free agency market, it kind of signals that they're moving on?
I think that they're still in play because Orlando Brown, I think right now is the best tackle available. And if he was going to go to another team, I thought he would have been signed by now. So I still think he wants to stay in Kansas City. Why not win more championships and protect the best quarterback?
Interesting. Lope, what grade would you give Jawan Taylor?
I'm gonna go B plus. I think he's a better player than McGlinchey, and he's gonna be on the left side, which is actually the good side. And when the Chiefs had Mahomes, they're Super Bowl contenders. When his ankle was an issue, that's the only time we ever doubted him. So I think it's a really good move.
We now go to one of the bigger names that landed somewhere, Jimmy Garoppolo. finally out of San Francisco. He is free, but he moves on to Las Vegas to join Josh McDaniels. There's still rumors that they could be looking towards a quarterback in the draft, so he could still be in a bridge quarterback situation. But he signs for 3 years, 72 and a quarter, $7.25 million, $45 million guaranteed. Adam, what grade would you give Jimmy G joining the Raiders?
I'll give it a B plus, and the reason why is it kind of puts them in the middle of the road for quarterbacks for a yearly salary, so they're not going to cash strap themselves. He's back with McDaniels, right? He has the knowledge, he knows the system. I think Lope mentioned that before. You bring in Jacoby Myers, you have Devontae Adams. The Raiders now also, like you mentioned, they can potentially still draft a quarterback somewhere, but now they don't have the pressure of having to move up this year to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks or have to address it right now. Unless something goes completely sideways this year with Garoppolo, the Raiders now have a little bit more flexibility to address the quarterback situation. It doesn't have to happen this year.
Just for a perspective, the AAV for Derek Carr is $37.5 million this year. Jimmy Garoppolo, $24 million. That's a substantial difference in how the Raiders can move about. And obviously the difference in quarterback play is probably pretty equal. Michael, how do you feel about Jimmy Garoppolo moving on to the Raiders?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a very low grade. I'm gonna give it a D plus. I
Ooh.
think the Raiders settled for Jimmy G. I don't think he's a better quarterback than Derek Carr, and I think that's a lot of money if he is going to be a bridge quarterback. I just think that's way too much money for that.
Interesting. Josh McDaniels getting scolded by Michael. Lope, what are your thoughts? What grade will you give Jimmy G?
I'm going A. Look, you're going to play Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson. I mean, you need something. You need some quarterback. Now you don't have to waste any draft capital, like you said. It's not a crazy contract where he can be a bridge, and you give yourself a chance to win some games still this year because he's familiar, and that's the guy that Josh McDaniels wanted.
Wow, so a big split of different opinions on this one. We'll move on to what will be I'll just start with A+ signing. I already mentioned this. This we can be fast on because I'm assuming there are no haters on it. Tremaine Edmonds going from the Buffalo Bills to the Chicago Bears, 24 years old, $72 million for 4 years, guaranteed $50 million. Adam, are you on the same level as me, believing this is an A deal?
Yeah, it's an A deal for the Bears, and they also got T.J. Edwards from Philadelphia to partner with him, so 100% A.
Michael?
Yeah, I think that was one of the better moves of the offseason so far, so I agree.
Lope?
Yeah, it's an A. They needed a replacement for Roquan Smith, and I think they got it. And he's a great leader and a great tackler and always gave my Dolphins trouble, so definitely an A.
I love it in part because they move on from Roquan Smith and they have someone who fits the scheme that they're trying to build there. Love the move. But we now shift from one of my favorite moves to one of the moves that's kind of a head scratcher for me. Jesse Bates, the safety formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals, goes to the Atlanta Falcons, 4 years, $64 million, still getting some details out about it. Adam, how do you feel about this one? What grade would you give it?
So I give this one a C minus. I know the Falcons are in desperate need of defense, and especially their pass defense. I've just never been a big fan of giving big monies to safeties, and I think that $16 million a year, if I'm not mistaken, I think it puts him as one of the top 5 safeties in the league to get paid. And I think you can either look elsewhere through the draft or maybe slot a cornerback back to that safety position. And I understand what they're trying to do there because their pass defense was so bad, but I'm just not a big fan of paying that kind of money for a safety.
Michael, what are your thoughts and what's your grade for a Jesse Bates to Atlanta Falcons signing?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Falcons needed secondary help really badly by just giving up one of the worst total yards per game. But at the same time, I think Jesse Bates just followed the money a lot of the situation. I just don't like the fit. I think it's a C.
Lope, are you as down on this as everyone else?
I mean, I get it. It's a lot of money, but eventually you're going to have to pay defensive playmakers, or you're going to have to draft well. And the Falcons haven't, so they're there. I'll give it a solid B. I think it hurts the Bengals more than it probably helps the Falcons. Typical Bengals being a little cheap, but I'll still say a B, and I think he'll play pretty well for the Falcons.
That's how we graded our NFL free agents up until this point. We're still waiting on Orlando Brown and a few more dominoes to fall, but that was the grading that we offered up. We'll have to check back in to see how those ultimate signings do over the year and whether our predictions and our reactions prove to be right. We're going to close out the show as we always do now with our last segment, Mark My Words. We'll go through a series of scenarios. And guys, this is where we give our predictions and projections about the future. These are things you have to live by, so make sure that you're willing to stand by these words. We'll start with Adam, and as the first one, we'll stay with the Raiders because they've been a popular theme in the show. As Raider quarterback, Jimmy G will fill in the blank.
Bring experience in McDaniel's offense and will lead to more consistent production.
That's not a prediction. That's a sugar honey sweet answer. No. We want wins. We want he's going to shatter his leg. Like, I'll start. Fine. I'll start this off. I'll give you guys, mark my words, as Raiders quarterback, Jimmy G will have a huge injury this year, will miss significant time. It will be a lower leg injury like it always is because he's not Jimmy Garoppolo. He's Jimmy Glass. Jimmy Glass is his name. He breaks every time he leaves his house. Like, he's the car that they want you to get off the lot because the moment you own it, you bought it, you buy it, and you've got to pay for all of the repairs. So anyways, mark my words, Jimmy G will suffer a lower leg injury this year and miss at least a month and a half of time. That's my mark my words. Adam, now let's have you take it from there. What's your mark my words for Jimmy G?
Okay, this one could be easy then. Jimmy G will finish all 17 games as a starter for the Las Vegas Raiders this year, and the Raiders will make the playoffs.
Okay, that's more like it. That's a bold prediction right there. Hey, we're going out on limbs saying he's going to start all 17 games. Michael, we go to you as Raiders quarterback. Jimmy G will fill in the blank with your mark my words.
Yeah, you kind of stole mine, Wyatt. Not gonna lie. I think, mark my words, that Jimmy G's gonna play 5 games at most, and then the Raiders are gonna wish that they re-signed Jarrett Stidham.
Which they did not. He's going to the Denver Broncos. That was an interesting little move. I'm surprised that Josh McDaniels couldn't hold on to his boy. A little surprised. Lope, mark my words, is Raiders quarterback Jimmy G will
win more games than Derek Carr did for him this past year.
Oh, hot take. I love it, Lope. I love it. Okay. We're going now to the next one. I'll start it to make sure that everyone still is holding true to this. Adam, mark my words, as the Miami Dolphins, now that they have Jalen Ramsey, will be one of the best. I'll say will be a top 5 secondary in the NFL, and it won't matter. That even while they have one of the best secondaries with Howard, Ramsey, and Holland, Tua Tagovailoa being on the fringe, being on the edge of being an NFL quarterback or being too injured to actually play the position, will ultimately keep the Dolphins from going anywhere. So it doesn't matter who they add to this defense. Tua Tagovailoa is going to be the reason the Dolphins go nowhere. Adam, we'll go to you. Miami Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey.
So I think now that they have Jalen Ramsey, I think it's giving Vic Fangio more of a complete defense, and I think they'll have a top 5 defense next year. And with that top 5 defense, coupled with Tua not making any mistakes, or if Mike White comes in, will win the AFC East.
Oh, we'll win the AFC East. Okay, that's more like it. We like that. Michael, what's your mark my words for the Dolphins and Ramsey?
Mark my words, Jalen Ramsey is going to have an all-pro season, and the Dolphins will be a wild card team but lose in the wild card. I just think that I'm a Tua believer, and even if he doesn't play, I think Mike White is in a way better situation than he was with the Jets, and I think with that offense, that I don't think they're going to miss that much of a beat.
Love it, love it. Lope, we go to you for your Miami Dolphins and your mark my words about Jalen Ramsey.
Well, Adam already stole my thunder because as soon as the news dropped, I already bet the Dolphins to win the AFC East.
Woo!
So I'll start with that, and I'll say Jalen Ramsey is a Pro Bowler for sure.
For all those listening, by the way, there are two Lopes out there. There's Grumpy Lope, and then there's Dolphins could win the AFC East Lope. That's where you hear the smile through the audio Lope. So for the first time in a long time, Lope, you have some hope because Finkel laces out. You finally have a team that isn't just built on Dan Marino. Problem is now you still don't have a quarterback. Anyways, we now move on to mark my words. The best free agent signing will ultimately be, and I'm going to shift back over to Tremaine Edmonds. This isn't a hot take. I've been saying it all show. Maybe I'm giving a bit too much love because we got Yoni listening, and I want the Chicago Bear fans to know I'm with them. But mark my words, the best free agent signing will be Tremaine Edmonds. He's young, he's physical, he's smart, he's an anchor. This is a no-brainer home run. Adam, I go to you. Mark my words. Who's the best free agent signing?
I'm going to be a little bit of homer on this one, but it's the only free agent signing the Packers made so far, and that was Keyshawn Nixon. He missed the first 8 games of the year last year while we were waiting and giving Amari Rodgers every opportunity to keep that job. But when he came in, it was almost like Desmond Howard 2.0 for us. He completely changed our offense. He gave us all kinds of field position. He led the league in kickoff return yards, and he started to see the field a little bit on defense. So the best free agent signing is Keyshawn Nixon.
I love that one because that dude was a game changer for you guys. So sometimes those little signings and special teams go unnoticed. Not to me. Like, that's a great signing. I thought it was essential for you guys. So I'm totally with you there. I think that's an easy mark my words. Good call on that one. Michael, we go to you. Best free agent signing.
Mark my words, the best free agent signing will ultimately be Alan Lazard. The reason why it's coming full circle is it's going to result in Aaron Rodgers being a Jet.
Yeah, you did take that full circle. I appreciate you completing the route of the show, bringing us home right into port right there. Well done. Lope, we'll go to you next. Best free agent signing will be?
I like Jawan Taylor to the Chiefs. I think that solidifies it, and they're going to be the 1 seed, and somebody's going to go have to beat them in Arrowhead. Hopefully it's my Dolphins.
There, you heard that smile come through again. It might be my Dolphins. Michael, I did want to shout out Andrew Wiley. While he wasn't my best signing pick because Edmonds I thought was a home run, I do think Andrew Wiley was a great signing for you guys. Washington definitely takes a step forward in building in the trenches where, let's be honest, it doesn't matter whether it's Lamar Jackson, Sam Howell, or someone through the draft. If they have an offensive line, this team is actually much closer to being competitive than people think. With that said, we go to the worst free agent signing. Mark my words, the worst free agent signing will be, you know what I'm going to say. It's Jimmy G, because the dude's made of glass. The guy cannot walk outside his house without shattering. So mark my words, the worst signing will be Jimmy G. Adam, we go to you.
The worst free agent signing this year to me was Patrick Peterson. This makes absolutely no sense for him to go to Pittsburgh. He's on the far back 9 of his career. He said he wants to play for a contender to win some rings. Pittsburgh's not ready for that. And he's also played his entire career in Arizona and Minnesota. Now he's going to go play his last year or two in the cold of Pittsburgh. And I know he had 5 picks last year, but Minnesota's pass defense was so bad. He just had many more opportunities to get interceptions. So this Patrick Peterson to Pittsburgh makes absolutely no sense to me.
But he's a dog, and that's like the dog pound. You don't think that they're like him and Tomlin are just going to be boys, and he's going to dog out with Minkah Fitzpatrick?
He's teeing off on the 17th hole of his career. He's not going to want to be out there in Pittsburgh in November and December playing football. I can promise you.
Yo, good call. Playing the Browns and the Ravens in December will not be fun for him. I agree with that. Michael, worst free agent signing?
I would actually have to go with Rashad Penny for the Eagles. That just made no sense to me. That's a sizable downgrade. Dude could barely stay on the field for I forgot how long he's been in the league, but it seems like he could barely stay on the field. I get that it was a very cheap, team-friendly deal, but at the same time, your backfield is not great.
Lope, who's your worst free agent signing?
Gonna go. I don't know if you consider him a free agent, but the Daniel Jones contract for the Giants, I thought was completely horrendous. He got way too much money to be slightly below average quarterback, and I'm not going to wish injury, but I think that was the worst signing so far.
Okay, and this will be our last mark my words prediction for the show. This is any kind of move that you would like to see happen between now and the next time we have a show. Adam, if you'd like to see Aaron Rodgers move so you can finally stop talking about it, that could be this could be the moment for it. But I'll start with this one. Between now and next week's show, I want to see DeAndre Hopkins traded, and I want to see him traded to the New England Patriots because Bill Belichick loves DeAndre Hopkins. I would love to see that. I know, Michael, I know the haters are going to say it, but I would like to see that because there's a history for this. Chad Ochocinco, Randy Moss. Bill Belichick brings in some big names. It just doesn't sometimes get reported. The Patriots, they lose Jacoby Myers. I think they were willing to give that up. They don't have any talent at the wide receiver position. I would like to see them go get Nuke and go get DeAndre Hopkins. That'll be my move. Adam, we go to you.
Yeah, between now and the next show, it's easy for me to take the words out of my mouth. I just want the Aaron Rodgers drama to be over with, become a Jet so we can all move on with our lives. But actually, one thing I'd really like to see is what happens with Jordan Poyer, the Buffalo Bills. I'd like to see how that plays out here, and hopefully it does before the next time we meet.
That's a good call. He's someone who kind of got forgotten in the hustle of the free agency period early on. Michael, we go to you.
I would like to see Austin Eckler be traded to the Chicago Bears for that 9th overall pick plus more incentive. I think that why not go all in? Help Justin Fields be the quarterback that he can be, have the most dynamic backfield, pass catching running back in the league. He wants to leave if they're not giving him the contract, they're giving him permission to seek trades. Why not go to the Bears?
Bold move. I love it for Justin Fields. Interesting. I might be giving up a lot, but I love the move getting Austin Eckler out of LA. Lope, we close it out with you. What would be the move you want to see made over the next week?
I want to see the Buffalo Bills go after Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry, get some kind of running game going, take some pressure off Josh Allen, who I think regressed just because he was being called on to do everything for the offense and everything had to run for him.
And that's what we call the Butt Fumble Sports Weekly NFL Show. Appreciate all of you guys listening, joining, participating in the conversation. It was a lot of fun going through another week of the NFL offseason and covering as much as we did. Make sure you're following us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Butt Fumble Sports are our channels. And you can also find us on Twitter at Sports Fumble. Want to give a big shout out to everyone who contributed tonight. Adam, you can find him at Spotter AJ, SPOTTERAJ on Twitter. Also want to give a big shout out to Michael Dobbin. You can find him at Mike Dobbs 94. And of course, Lope as well. That's at JLopeDog, dog spelled DAWG. Those guys do a great job for us, contributing a lot of content every week. Appreciate your insight. And of course, want to give a big shout out to Bleece, who handles everything behind the scenes for us. One of the most creative people you can find. Check him out at BLEACENFT on Twitter. Thank you guys, everyone, for listening, watching. Make sure you go to our website, buttfumblesports.com, to find all of our content, sign up for our newsletter, and of course, engage with us. We look forward to talking to you guys next week as we talk NFL every Tuesday at